Hi, welcome to the Chasing Brighter podcast with your hosts, Kelly and
Jessica. Join us on our journey to find the best versions of ourselves.
I'm very excited about how my hair looks.
Great. You know what else makes your hair look great, Jess?
Washing it.
The Warrior Strong Wellness collagen peptides and bone broth. I've noticed a huge difference with just the health of my hair. I just have naturally thin hair. So
collagen's so good for hair, nails, skin.
Check out warriorstrongwellness.com for their collagen peptides and bone broth or their multi-collagen protein powder.
If you use the Chasing Brighter code, all one word, Chasing Brighter, you can get 10% off of your purchase.
Today, Kelly and I are so excited to have Natalie of The Organized Aesthetic join us. Natalie is the owner and founder, and she provides digital and virtual organizing and productivity coaching services. She specializes in helping women tackle the projects in their home and life that have them feeling overwhelmed. Welcome, Natalie. We're so excited to have you today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. This is actually my first podcast, so I'm very excited.
Awesome.
Cool. Yay.
Well, we're trying to make it super chill. And what Kelly's was talking about a bit earlier, for a lot of moms, the month of August is like getting organized, getting everything ready, setting up systems for a good school year. And so we've been having experts on decluttering, organization, time management. So we're so excited to talk with you today and pick your brain and hear about your expertise.
Awesome. No, I can't wait. Got a lot of good tips to share, so I'm ready.
Awesome. Well, I think we want to even just start as, what brought you here to this moment and really starting the Organized Aesthetic?
Yeah, I think you can say blessed or cursed with a type A personality, but that is certainly my case. So when I was, even as a kid, my biggest, funniest story in terms of organizing is I would throw a fit if I couldn't find like a socks matching pair after the laundry was done. If I could not find its matching pair, it was just game over. And that's what my parents had to deal with. But I think truly I just always had a knack for it. I color coded subjects in school so I could be in and out of my locker quick. I kept my room neat and tidy. So it was more of a sanctuary. It's truly just something I always carried with me, no matter where I was, how old I was. And so then eventually, COVID hit, and it's something that I think a lot of people took time to reevaluate, a lot of stuff in their life. You're stuck at home with a lot of things and clutter. And I learned that organizing is something that isn't just something I can do. It's something I can share with the world and really would help other people. So eventually started the Organized Aesthetic doing in-person organizing, and that has evolved to virtual organizing and productivity coaching to reach more people. And it's been a wild ride, but a lot of fun.
Do you think that there was like a point in your life where you realized, because I think we all kind of grow up just as humans, that you think everybody's kind of like you in some way. Like, was there a point where you realized that not everybody thinks naturally about keeping things tidy, or it's not something that comes easy to many people?
Yeah, absolutely. I think to your point, it was somewhat shocking to me that not everybody, this isn't right, just come naturally to everyone. I think in terms of a specific point, I think ultimately my sister and I are complete opposites. So once we hit high school and college and all that, it was kind of learning how to share the bathroom and whatnot. And then even after that, I think once, I went off to school, really realizing that, a lot of people don't have the same time management skills. A lot of people's dorm rooms are crazy and cluttered, and just little things like that were, kind of taken out of my bubble as a kid at home. My mom's super type A as well. So just kind of used to that and kind of got this awakening that, hey, not everybody is like this, and your brain is certainly wired differently.
And I have a question. So this is kind of, since we've been interviewing all these experts and researching, and we're reading our book club book, I have not been as familiar with productivity coaching. And so I would like to hear more about that.
Yeah. So I think ultimately what we kind of say is that decluttering and organizing is the gateway to a more productive life. So by doing, a lot of this decluttering with folks and in-person organizing, you realize that you're setting up these systems that are going to make their lives more efficient. And so then you take the physical part out of that and it's like, all right, great. We've got, the physical space set up. We've got physical systems set up, but what are the things that are cluttering your mind? What are the things that are holding you back from being your most productive self? That might not be, the clothes everywhere. And so then it's digging a little bit deeper into your day to day. And ultimately, it's very similar, right? The process to become more productive is similar to the process of organizing. You're just doing it from more of a mental standpoint than a physical standpoint. So that's where productivity coaching kind of became a natural extension of the business, where, folks were realizing, all right, not only can she help me get my space, in order, but also help me get my life in order, for lack of a better term.
Do you think that helps with like motivation? Or so I have a lot of clients and we'll put together a plan, we call an action plan, and they're going to go do those things. And then we'll meet and they're like, I didn't do any of it.
Yeah.
And so is that akin to motivation, or kind of like, how would you kind of describe that?
Yeah, I think ultimately motivation will come into play, I think, as soon as you're chipping away at things and you see things working, right? So I think once you productivity coaching, it's not something where, right, here's, to your point, here's kind of like the action plan, now take it and run with it. It's really kind of chipping away at things rather than doing a big task at once, breaking it up into smaller tasks. And so I think that is what feeds that motivation piece where, all right, hey, this week, rather than, try and do this giant project at hand, do these pieces of it. And from there, you're kind of getting into the groove of seeing immediate results and being really satisfied with that. And therefore motivated to continue and keep going and chip away until the actual project at hand is complete.
I like that.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, so especially when you come across situations where, people are just, there's a lot going on, right? Yeah. How do you coach them on like, where does one even begin to get started?
Yeah, I think the best thing for that in my mind is truly the brain dump is what, a lot of folks call it. And ultimately, because people don't know where to get started, because there's a bunch of things, we were talking before this about how your mind's going a million miles a minute. There's so much cluttering your mind that the first step, you don't know what it is until you get all of that out. And so that's inevitably the first step is to actually sit down and write down everything that's stressing you out and write down everything that's going on until your brain is empty and you can't think of another task, another reminder, another return you have to make, whatever it is. That is the ultimate first step, is getting everything out on paper, digital, whatever works for you, so that you can actually see everything at hand. And from there, prioritize, decide what's going to be, most effective in terms of chipping away at some of that stuff. But ultimately, when people don't know where to start, that's what I tell them is, all right, let's sit down and just dump everything that you're thinking about out on me right now. And we can go from there.
So would you say, so a lot of that I think about is like mental load is like the term in a lot of ways, especially just, as life gets busy for people, they just like keep putting expectations on themselves of certain things that they need to have done. So is this part of it too, is just like freeing oneself of some of the mental load that they have?
Absolutely. I think a big piece of productivity, if you will, is kind of like the capturing. So like you said, brain dumping, capturing all of these different things that you need to do. And so if you have what, I would call a capture system set up, that then does free your mind of that mental load. It's a capture system that you would need to have readily available to you no matter where you are. So that's where, in my case, I have a note on my phone that is, my quote unquote capture system. And ultimately, as long as that's available to me and I think of something while I'm driving, I pull over, write it down, and I don't have to think about it anymore until I get home. So to your point, it is that freeing of the mental load. While no, you're not completing those tasks right away, but ultimately you've gotten it down somewhere so you don't have to think about it until you have that set time when you get home in the evening, whatever it is, to address those things.
Okay.
We're reading the book 4,000 Weeks, and he talks about Stephen Covey's book, or one of Stephen Covey's books. And there's a story about a teacher that has a jar, big rocks, are you familiar with what I'm saying?
Yeah,
big rocks, pebbles, and sand. And the kids keep like putting the pebbles in and then the sand, and then they can't fit the rocks in, right? And so Stephen Covey says, that's because you're supposed to be putting from a productivity and time management standpoint, the big priorities first, then the small ones, and then the tiny ones. But my question is, and this is what he talked about in 4,000 Weeks, is if you have 12 ounces of big rocks and a 4-ounce jar. And so when we're brain dumping and we talk about mental load, what do we do when we're brain dumping and we think all of these things are priorities, and some of them really are, and it's just not appropriate for one person who has been handling them, and that was probably not the best for their mental health. So what do we do when we think like everything's a priority?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. Ultimately, there's somewhat of an exercise that I would tell people to do that is a do, delegate, delete, if you will. So you see all of these things and you think they're all really high priority. And to your point, some of them might be, some of them are, and inevitably they need to get done, and they need to get done by you. That is what I would call your do's, right? Those are things that you need to get done, and no matter what, that's going to be a high priority. Then there are things that still need to get done and they're still a priority, but they don't necessarily need to be on your plate. And so that comes into the delegate side of things, whether that is, a partner, teaching kids some of these like different techniques early on. That can even look like outsourcing to doing grocery pickup if you don't have time to go to the grocery store and spend an hour there. Little ways to outsource, if you will, so that these things are still getting done. They still are high priority, but you can focus on truly the biggest needle movers. And a lot of times, as moms in the family, those are some of the things that, you're tasked with the most. And then there's the delete. And while a lot of folks might argue with me that there's not a lot that can get deleted, I get that for sure. I mean, I'm somebody who, being type A, I want to do it all. But there are little things that, all right, maybe they can't be completely deleted off your list, but they are low priority. You realize that, all right, I don't need to get this done today. My family doesn't need to get this done today. This is something that can be pushed to next week if need be. So that's kind of an exercise that I tell a lot of clients to run through. It's easier said than done. You really do have to look at each task and truly assign it a priority level and be okay relinquishing some of that control. But that is what I found to be really effective with people.
I like that.
I like that a lot.
Because I think that part of it is, especially pushing things off that don't matter. One of the things that we had another guest recently, Megan Summerell, who one of the things I kind of took away from the conversation with her was really about, I guess what I would say is like making time for yourself, or busy time, or there's these pockets of time where it's not always like you need to be doing something, but there's like always making space for that too. Because sometimes I think when we think about time management or we think about productivity, it's about like every time you're doing something, whereas your body isn't really wired for that either, right?
Right. That's a big thing, quite frankly, that I feel like even still I struggle with is, all right, when there is this free time in the day, I feel like I need to be getting something done. Right. And so I think it's a good reminder to us that even if it's just 15 minutes, like to sit and shut your brain off, even if you can't stop, but, maybe you're in the shower and you manipulate your environment in some way where you can shut your brain off. So maybe you shut the lights off. I think just something where you are providing yourself with that time to reset. Because if we do keep going, like we're going to burn out. It's inevitable. So I think, to your point, if finding those pockets of time, quite frankly, even adding that to your to-do list of, hey, here's 15 minutes of me time, is really important, because I see a lot of folks that I work with, right, forget about that. They say, I just want to find some time to wash my hair uninterrupted by the kids. and so being able to find those pockets of time and commit to them is hard, but it's important. Otherwise, we're going to set ourselves up for failure, and then the people that rely on us for failure, because ultimately, we're just burning out at the end of the day.
I heard or read it somewhere, but it's like, put it in your appointment book as an appointment for you, just like you would for everyone else. And that has helped me as an achiever, to put in like gym, read, whatever that self-care time is. Then I do feel like, oh, it's in my appointment and I'm checking it off. So I'm producing at that time.
Right. If you like seeing things crossed off the list, like there's a lot of folks out there that do. I'm one of them. Absolutely. By adding that to your list, look, you still feel like you're being productive because you're getting it done. But it is worked in there because it is for you, and it is that time and space for you to reset.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to get to now kind of, do you say decluttering? I mean, like the decluttering and the organization. I feel like as we've been doing these interviews, Kelly's like, okay, asking for a friend who has blonde hair and blue glasses, 2 boys, lives in Chicago, but it's just like for my friend. What would you do for someone who?
Right.
Because this is like Kelly's so into this. I love it. But where so where do we start, right? We're, moms, women, and we have toys and things. And, where do you suggest we start when we feel overwhelmed with, kind of having clutter in our space?
Definitely. So I think, ultimately decluttering is the first step. So I think decluttering is going to be really overwhelming. So you can't do it all at once. You need to pick a specific space. I would say if this is your first time ever doing that, pick a small space, pick a drawer, pick something that is not going to be super overwhelming. Or if you're ready to, tackle the toy room, if you're ready to tackle the bathroom, just focus on that space at first. And then, similar to what we kind of talked about with productivity, is break that down. So if you don't have time to declutter the entire toy room today, then break down, hey, we're going to do, these cubes of toys. Really just kind of chip away at some of those things, make yourself a schedule so that you stay on that schedule and you are fully decluttering. But make sure that you break it up so that, you don't get too overwhelmed. You don't kind of get that analysis paralysis of, do I keep this? Do I not? That's what I would say. But ultimately, decluttering is the first step. And the biggest thing that I tell folks is you need to take everything out. It's going to get worse before it gets better, but you need to have that shock value. You need to have that shock factor of, this is all of the stuff that is in here. These are all of the clothes in my closet. These are all of the toys my kids have, so that you really do see, all right, look, there's no sense in keeping all of this and organizing all of this because it's not all still serving me. So I think ultimately chip away, break it up, but then when you're ready to actually tackle it, take everything out. It's going to get worse before it gets better, but that is going to help you out.
And do you need to do that process more than one time? I mean, so like, especially for me, whatever it is, toys are very difficult for me, memories, kids, whatever. So you get it all out and you're like, okay, whatever. We have 6 cubbies and we want to have 3. And then do we need to go back to 1 cubby, or,
No, so that makes sense. I think, ultimately you should set those expectations for yourself up front. Usually what I tell folks is aim to be like 80 to 90% full. That way you have room to grow, but you're not exploding at the seams. I think decluttering is not going to be a one-time thing. So do that first round, and that's going to be the big purge. That's going to be, if you haven't done it before, that it's going to be like a Band-Aid, rip it off. But once you do that, it does get easier. So it's something to be said about, hey, we have these 6 cubbies. We want to get down to 4. Let's do that the first time around. And then maybe that's still a lot. Then, 6 months later, revisit. It doesn't have to be all at once. I think if you do get, kind of the emotions tied into it and you don't declutter as much as you wanted to or hope to, it's okay. I think just make sure that, again, you kind of have that time to revisit it and go ahead and go back and try again, so that, hey, maybe what was sentimental to me 6 months ago, maybe now it's not. Maybe something else has taken its place. Ultimately, it's going to be a process that is ongoing, and you're going to need to revisit and refresh that space.
And I love the name, the Organized Aesthetic. And what do you think that does for people? What's the benefit of the decluttering and the organization to our well-being?
Yeah, I think, there's truly countless benefits. I think ultimately, you can be tactical and think about the time saved. You can think about the money saved because, hey, you're not buying duplicates. You know what you have. There's a lot of little wins like that. But I think ultimately, especially as women, we talk about the fact that we do carry this mental load, and to walk into a space when we're home and just to be able to breathe. That's my thing, is when I tell people why I chose the name The Organized Aesthetic. It's you close your eyes, you picture a space that is free of clutter, you know where things are, you walk in at the end of the day, you can drop your bags and you can just have that sigh of relief. I think that is the ultimate benefit, right? Because your mental health is in a much better place. Your relationships are in a much better place. You're the fact that you just have a little bit of time and peace to yourself when you walk through the doors, rather than immediately thinking of all the things that need to get done, the clutter that needs to be addressed. I think that is the ultimate benefit of just being able to have that peace, time, clarity back in your life that you were so desperately craving before.
So in terms of, I think about how for myself, I will organize areas and I'll get a system in place and it sticks and I've been able to maintain it, which means I feel like it's a good system. So maybe I have a 2-part question. One is, how do you even establish a system? Yeah. And then, how do you maintain it? I guess, because I'm thinking about it as I know how to do some of these things. It's not natural to me. And I don't know how to I would love to get to a point, right, where it's more of maintenance. Even when we talked to Amy Chinitz about tidying up, where if I just had, a little bit of time each day where I'm just sort of maintaining, instead I'm looking at a corner being like, oh God, I'm just going to shut the door and then I look at some other things. How does one tackle some of that?
I think while it's a 2-part question, it's almost a 1-part answer in that when you're establishing systems, you have to think about how you work, how you operate, or whoever's coming into contact with the space. So how your family operates. So maybe that's something in the morning when you're getting dressed, you think according to colors as opposed to categories. You're I want to wear this. So set up your closet in that way so that it makes it a little bit more snappy. I think with kids, if you've got kids in the picture, and you don't want to have to, you want to eliminate one of those hey moms that you get a million times throughout the day, then put approved snacks at their eye level, so that they know what they can grab, it's within reach, and that is another system that just again makes something a little bit more streamlined and efficient. So think about who's coming into contact in the space. Think about how they operate, how they think, so that you can set up an organizing system that is going to be most beneficial to them, that's going to make them more efficient. And then because of maintaining it, it's a little bit easier because you already think in that way. So the fact that this is set up in a way that's going to serve you best, then to maintain it, to your point about maybe 10, 15 minutes a day, tidying up, what I call putting the house to bed, a lot of that stuff I already know where it is because it's how I think and how I operate. So that's just so much quicker to then reset the space for the next day. So if that makes sense, I think, ultimately just making sure that, because organizing isn't one size fits all, it's going to be tailored. So you have to think about people that are coming into contact with that space and what's going to be most valuable to them.
I like that. I think where I struggle is just being consistent on that. It's like I have pockets of my daily routine or even our family that's like, okay, this makes sense. This flows. It feels good. Right. And then these other things where I'm like, they're not getting the care and attention to be like curated, right? To what you're saying.
Yeah.
I like that. Put the house to bed.
Yeah.
I like that tip.
That's something that, every night. Well, I'm one who tends to fall asleep on the couch, by like 10 o'clock. And then my partner wakes me up, time for bed. And so within those 10 minutes of him waking me up and me getting into actual bed, it's all right, let's fold these blankets, let's fluff the pillows, just the tiniest little things that, do the dishes. That way the next morning I wake up and I'm not stressed with, all right, what it all has to get done.
Yeah. You're not starting with a list of to-dos already. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm trying to do that with the dishwasher.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing that's so hard is, although I do have a friend, like definitely first world problems, who told me what they bought a house and it had 2 dishwashers. And she was like, why do I need 2 dishwashers? And she's like, oh my God, it's amazing. Cause like, there's always one that you can put the dishes away in. So like, you're not like constantly playing catch up. And that's the thing is that I'm trying to flip the script on the dishwasher situation where you load it and start it at night.
Yeah.
And then I wake up and I'm like, oh, I don't want to unload it. Where I would love to flip it where it's like, I'm in the morning, I'm loading, starting it, unloading it before dinner or something. So then I don't have to feel like that's for me, like I think what you're saying too, right, is like figuring out what works best for what you need.
Right, exactly. Because some folks might, maybe they're a big morning person, and that's something where they like to get a bunch of stuff done like right off the bat and then have the rest of their day. Like I get stuff done before work for sure, but I'm also one of those people who I like to wake up and know that at least the house is in order to some degree. So so to your point, exactly, like making sure that, how do you work? How do you operate? What is, what time of day are you going to be most energetic or most motivated? Taking those things into account.
And maybe that's something you delegate, since we can't delete it, but you can delegate that.
There is some delegation occurring on that. It just requires a lot of directives, authoritative edicts.
Fair enough.
When we are kind of going back to that decluttering, when we're purging, do you have any recommendations on what we're doing with the things that we have to give away?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, so making some of those piles, a quick trick to that is even just getting a black garbage bag and a white garbage bag, and knowing that, hey, these are things that I'm going to donate, these are things that I'm going to toss, putting a separate pile away for things they're going to sell. So there's a lot of different things that you can do in that sense. I think, of course, donating, if you can sell on Poshmark or Facebook Marketplace, so you can make a little bang for your buck there. Or ultimately, there's even some things that you don't even have to like leave your house to do. So Amazon has what's called like the Give Back Box program, and you just anything you're wanting to get rid of, it doesn't matter what it is. If you have a spare Amazon box lying around, you can go to givebackbox.com and they spit you out a label, and then you just toss anything you're going to donate in there and ship it out. So there's a lot of different things that you can do so that those things don't sit in your trunk for a really long time or sit at the house for a really long time, so that you can make sure you're actually, taking advantage of the fact that you're getting rid of it. The fact that, hey, this is no longer serving me. It's going to serve somebody else, whether that is somebody who pays for it, whether that is somebody who it's donated to, but it can live onward. So I think ultimately just making sure that you have kind of this array of options for yourself. And that way, especially for the sentimental stuff, right, that this is still going to live on in some way. Because it's hard and it's emotional to some degree, but knowing that this is going to somebody else that it's going to make so happy is huge.
Kelly, how do we not know about the Give Back Box?
Did you see my brain kind of exploded?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I was like, and a what now? What? Yeah, I have and we talk about just stupid things, but you're right. It adds to your list when you have to deal with it. But like I ordered the wrong Fitbit charger and failed to give it back.
Yep.
and I ordered a
Yes.
like webcam like on clearance, and it doesn't work for my what I need it for. So I have these like things in the
You
box
missed
they
the
came
window
in,
of
just sitting
returns
there.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like and you want it to like we talked about this in previous episodes, but I do donate to Goodwill because it's very easy here. It has like a drive-through situation, but like I really think they just take everything I donated and throw it in the trash. I really do. I don't know this. Sorry, Goodwill. I don't really know what happens to it. I feel like they're like, yeah, we'll take your stuff, and then we're like throwing it away. So it's like so there are things, right, where it's like I want to know, like you're saying, it goes somewhere and is utilized. And
Right.
so I love that because like you're saying, most of us have an Amazon box in the house.
Right.
And so it's really like 30 seconds of like click, click, print, stick it on, and then you're good to go. So that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Little things, right? That are not completely well known, but once you find these little nuggets and tidbits, it makes your life a lot easier. So
Yeah.
I agree. I like that. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, and we'll get back to some of the organization stuff, but I just even want to talk, Natalie, I think what's really awesome is just the entrepreneurial spirit that you have in doing this. And I think a lot of people, they have some passions and interests in certain areas and struggle with kind of like figuring out how to like, take the leap and start going down a path. Like even for Jess and I, starting the podcast is a bit of a passion project. We're really having a lot of fun talking to a lot of amazing people like yourselves. And like that kind of came out of some conversations we had, but it's like, how did you, like, what kind of sparked you? I know you kind of talked about it was during COVID and some other things, but like, when did that light bulb go off that you're like, I think I'm going to just make a go at like, establishing, organizing, even the name, like maybe kind of tell us even about all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with, if your audience is familiar with the show on Netflix. So it was Get Organized with the Home Edit. And so that came out, I think it was during COVID. I think I watched it, maybe it was like September 2020 and binged it. I mean, I had seen the Marie Kondo, show before and liked that and related to that. But this with Joanna and Clea, the way these two women thought and the way they operated, I was like, wow, like I relate to these two like none other. And that was when the light bulb went off that organizing can even be a business. I had realized what a benefit it was to me throughout COVID. And then the fact that, oh my gosh, this is something I could actually make a business out of and helping people was really all due to watching that. And it didn't take long. I am not somebody who years ago I would have predicted, has an entrepreneurial spirit, to your point. The second that I watched that, I threw myself into just education around it.
Oh, cool.
Connecting with organizers online, setting up coaching calls with them to learn more about what it's like to build and grow an organizing business. And so threw myself into education between books, podcasts, interviews. And I think it really only took maybe a month or two of that to decide I'm going to just go for it. And I'm not sure what all this entails. And turns out it entails a whole lot more than you think it does. But there's such immediate rewards with it too, where you just kind of see right off the bat, I wasn't, organizing for money. I was just helping people out to build up some content. And even just that immediate reward of seeing, the change that it made in their lives and how excited they were, just kind of fueled me to keep going. So it all really started from watching that and truly just throwing myself into it. And then, like I said, after about a year or so, realizing that there was this natural extension to reach more people. Some folks need somebody to come into the home and do it for them. Other folks are like, just give me the blueprint. Like all I need is the blueprint and I can do from there. So seeing how I can serve those people as well. So it's been, like I said, a very fun ride, a very wild ride. But I've learned so much and gotten to connect with so many amazing people. And so I said, it's truly all thanks to the Home Edit.
That's awesome. But I mean, it's something you felt drawn to, you had a passion about, you felt strongly about, and you really felt like this is something that you had a unique skill set for. That's super awesome. Cool.
And like you mentioned the name, Kelly, I have like my practice is just my name. And I tried and tried and tried to make a name, and that's just not my strong suit. Yeah. So how did you come upon your name?
It's a really good question. And I wish I had a story of like, throwing ideas at the wall and being like, oh my gosh, this is it. But for whatever reason, like right off the bat, the idea of aesthetic has really, I feel like, just kind of grown a lot in the past couple of years, right? Like it's always been a word, it's always been something people use. But I think in the past, because of social media and everything, it's this person's aesthetic or this type of aesthetic. And so that word was just kind of in my brain already. And so I think, ultimately thinking about organizing, I'm like, yeah, like think about the way that you walk into a home and you have this organized aesthetic, and it just kind of, naturally flowed from there. So I think it really wasn't some big brainstorming process, which I'm quite frankly grateful for, that it just immediately I knew that was the name. But the name came to me, and I think maybe just a couple days of me being like, is there anything else out there? Is there anything else I want to do? And it's the name that just stuck right off the bat. And it's really resonated with folks too, because I think, a lot of people, to your point, just are craving this different stuff that they see on social media, on Pinterest. And so to be craving this aesthetic that I can help provide them with, it really just makes sense for it to be in the name.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us more about, some tips, especially that you see when you first kind of work with some of your clients. You call them clients?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Because some people call customers, it just depends on what it is. But some tips that you would have, just for our listeners and followers as they get started thinking about this stuff.
Absolutely. I think ultimately there's somewhat of a 5-step organizing process that I tend to follow. So I think you need to set goals right off the bat, set, kind of your vision for your space, so you know what you're aiming for. Declutter, go through that purge, ask yourself the hard questions. And then from there, it's truly just, it really does end up being so simple and applicable to every space. You set those goals, you declutter, you categorize what remains after decluttering, and you organize it, you put it back where it makes sense to you, like those systems we're talking about, and then you maintain that space. So ways to maintain it, right? You have those resets, use labels. They don't have to be pretty, but they hold you accountable, so you know exactly where something belongs. Things like that. So really, I dumb it down to these like 5 steps, because ultimately it does apply to any space, your garage, your bathroom, your toy room. If you follow those 5 steps, it could take you, depending on the space, 30 minutes. It could take you 30 days, but following those is going to help you out. There's some fun like hacks that I tell people, if they aren't ones for, going through the decluttering process with their clothes, you can do a hanger trick. You put all your clothes backwards, you hang them up backwards. And then as you wear things, put them back facing forward. Come 1 year later, 6 months later, depending on where you live, you'll know what you can get rid of. So taking some of the emotions out of it is helpful when it comes to, the actual decluttering part. But really just following those 5 steps, I think is what's going to be most valuable going from room to room, from space to space, if you don't know where to start yet.
I like that. Yeah, because I don't know if this happens to you, Jess, where it's like all of a sudden I'm like, I'm going to clean out my closet. Because I was thinking about one thing that I was like, I don't wear that anymore. I need to just give it up. I don't like it. And so I go in my closet. This happened this weekend. And I took out this shirt. I was like, I'm just going to give this away. And then I was like looking through my closet and I was like, no, I don't see anything else.
We're all good.
Which I mean is so not correct. And I just was like, I was really trying to like look through and like I couldn't think of anything else that I could get rid of, which I know is not true. But maybe this hanger trick would definitely be effective for me.
I recommend a lot of people, if you know a teenager who is into fashion, FaceTime them. And like Gabby will be like, you're never wearing that. Get rid of that right now. And Kelly, she would be like, that's gross. No. And then you'd be like, oh, okay. I feel like I prefer, and it feels so much better. But like what you're saying, like if you just take a little and a little at a time and a little at a time. But like this, we have like this big closet that goes under our stairs and forms like an L, and it's our pantry. And my husband decided to like go through it. One day, I mean, we go through it periodically, but it's like so overwhelming. Like you're saying, it's going to get worse before it gets better. So he took every single thing out. And meantime, I'm like, really? we close that door. You know what I mean? Like no one goes in there. Is that what we need to be focusing on when there's so many other things that you can like visually see? But like he went through this whole thing and it was great. It was really, it's nice. Like it's so much better now. We walk in it, you know, because what ended up happening, we have like a coat hangers, right? So there were like 20 coats. We live in Las Vegas. 107 today.
Yeah.
We don't need coats in our closet at this time. And so just kind of like setting that up, setting the systems and getting, you know, the kids on board. But for me, I would prefer like, I like baskets or like you said, but like a basket where I'm like, I'm just gonna put everything in this basket, sit down and just clean out this little basket today because otherwise I get, you know, very overwhelmed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was gonna say even too, I mean, you mentioned baskets, like just having, you know, those different bins and baskets and everything, that does make it easier to chip up or to chip away at stuff, right? To break things up a little bit. So, you know, if you can't go into this pantry or go into the closet and just do it all at once, right? Just, you know, take things out one at a time and whatever's highest priority.
I like your one shirt, Kelly.
Brian cleaned out the fridge a couple weeks ago. And he was like, I need you to come here. I want to show you something. In the top row of the fridge, he highlighted facing forward all the jars of pickles I have. And I was like, yeah, I mean, there's spears. There are the petite like gherkins. There are the hamburger slices. Like,
you're like, I stand by those purchases.
Like those are legit. I needed all of those pickles. I didn't understand, right? Anyway, the funniest part, Jez, was I was telling mom about this and she said, Kelly, you're just like me. And your father, he's had the pickle talk with me as well.
There are women in this country.
We have
having the pickle talk.
There's no like, that's not pickle clutter. That is like legit pickles.
They're necessary.
Use them, right?
Yes. I did not like grow up with expiration dates or cleaning out the fridge. So it's just not on my radar. But my husband, I know Kelly, your husband is as well. They're like going through the fridge all the time. It'll be like, this yogurt expired 1 day ago. We need to get rid of it immediately. And I'll be like, yeah, it's yogurt. Like it's
not, there's no orange film on it. It's totally fine.
Like, yeah, whatever. Like, you know, like leftovers can be in the fridge for 3 days. And then I'm like, okay.
It is too funny.
But I do think some of us, right, because of the home we grew up in, there were systems set up. And so we're used to that. Or like you said, it's a personality trait. But what do you do if that is something that doesn't come naturally to us? And, you know, you say, right, we set the goals, we declutter, we categorize and organize. But I think a lot of us can get stuck in that step 4. Of the organize. And so we fine tune it. We have the things that feel good that we want, but it's like, then how do we like organize that? Or what are some strategies you utilize?
Yeah, I think so. So really thinking about, like I said, kind of putting things away where they make sense for you. So if something's heavy, putting it on the bottom, like little things like that. Okay. Just really to think about, be conscious of where you're putting things rather than just, you know, shoving everything in a closet. To think about, all right, you know, maybe in the medicine cabinet, you know, these medicines go next to these ones, things that just naturally make sense together. I think is just, you know, things to think about. If you are not someone who is wired that way, I think the biggest thing then is to find accountability. And that can be with somebody else who lives in the home, that can be bringing a friend over, that can be bringing in professional help, whatever it is. I think there's such a stigma behind this of I should be able to do this by myself. And really that's not the case, right? Not everybody is wired this way, and that's okay. And so I think making sure that you're just honest with yourself of, hey, if I need some help, like ultimately this is going to get me to my goal. This is going to make my life a lot easier. So it's okay to call in some extra reinforcements, making sure that, you know, people are holding you accountable to a schedule so that you're actually doing stuff, making sure people are guiding you along the way, asking you questions that are going to help you realize where something might make the most sense. Because yeah, the truth is that a lot of people aren't thinking like that, and that's all right. So just making sure that you tap into some of those resources. And if it's not somebody else, like there's a plethora of information online at this point. There's so many tips and tricks out there. Organizing has blown up in the past couple years. So there's a lot of different ways that you can find, some help to guide you along that process if it doesn't come naturally.
I love that. And I think about, for those who want to go down this path, right, and know that they need help and want to work with you, how do you get started with your clients, and how would you recommend they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, find me on social media, which, is where I'm showing my face a lot and sharing a lot of good information. Or folks, visit my website. So I'm found on Instagram at The Organized Aesthetic. That's usually where I am the most. Mm-hmm. And then I do have a Facebook group as well that people can join to get some more like exclusive tips and tricks. It is free to join, but it is something that, we kind of building a community in there that people can rely on each other, while also taking advantage of that expert help, or heading to my website, which is just theorganizedesthetic.com. People can take a look at the different services on there if it's something that makes sense for them, where they just want, the blueprint, they want, in-person help, they want a course of how to do it themselves. There's plenty of different, services on there where people can see what's right for them and their budget, I think is the biggest thing. Because a lot of, organizing help, it can be expensive. So making sure that this is accessible to all people in different ways is something that I've really prioritized. So folks can find me in an array of places where they can access not only, free tips and tricks and content, but then also take that step to work together if they want.
I love that. I need some accountability.
Yeah.
It's huge. That's what a lot of folks honestly need, where, there's definitely some folks who need the help and the hand holding, and that's okay. There's a lot of folks too who just ultimately need that accountability. And I'm there to kind of meet people where they're at and help them along the way, no matter what their situation is.
That's awesome.
Well, I love all the tips that you provided us, and I still, I'm going to obsess over the delegate, delete for a while. I think sometimes it takes Kelly a minute to wrap our brains right around all of these things, and then this whole Amazon give back. Yeah, I've got to sit with that as well. So many great nuggets today.
Yes,
I thank you so much for taking the time to join us. This was wonderful.
Oh my gosh, absolutely!
Thank you so much.
Love talking organizing and productivity, love helping people out. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a lot of these.
Thanks for listening today. Don't forget to subscribe so you can hear our latest episodes as soon as they drop.
And if you love today's episode, leave a review. We'd love to hear from you.